Hello, everybody, and welcome into Blue Jays today, folks. Where today, everybody, there's another Apple TV game. Why do they keep doing this? I thought it was over. It's happening at 2:20 in the afternoon, too. Just ridiculous stuff. We will obviously be live for it because it is Friday, because it's an Apple TV game, but just stupidity, everybody, especially when Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is legitimately putting the team on his back right now. I guess we're not winning any games as he's doing it, but he's still putting the team on his back right now.
Well, we are winning games.
500 since the trade deadline. That's a little something to note. Very exciting there, but also the fact that this could legitimately be the greatest second half of a season that we've ever seen in MLB history from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Obviously, we're going to touch on that a little bit. And then, of course, some of the ongoings of those other guys. Joey Loperfido, what's going on over there? He's got a couple things that he needs to talk about, get off of his chest, and he did to John Schneider. So we're going to bring that up. And then as well, of course, the prospect rankings, because they have shifted around dramatically, everybody. A lot to break down here. I'm your host, Nicholas Playlog.
I'm your host, Adam Peddle. Yeah, that's the big thing, man. The prospect rankings are completely different nowadays. And I know, we've brought on Addison Barger on the show, and he says prospect rankings, they don't really mean much, guys. But, why would they have them if it doesn't at least have some sort of weighted value? It gives you a good idea to see which guys are progressing, which guys can you expect to have the most potential when they get up to the show. And as well, we got to look and see how our guys rank compared to other teams' guys in the top 100. Spoiler, it ain't too good, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But let's flash over, shall we?
I would also argue, just jumping off of that point there, because I hear what Addison Barger's saying from a player standpoint. It's like, oh, you put me at 7, that doesn't define me. I can still be very good, which is totally true. But I think that the prospect rankings is the best way for us to evaluate what other people are thinking about you and the leash that you're going to have when you come to the show, the amount of trade value you're going to have if somebody wants to purchase you, how many, how much just stuff are we going to invest into your development? Because the 30th ranked prospect, if he comes up and he starts batting 100, well, guess what, kid? You're gone after a couple weeks type thing. Whereas if the number 1 overall ranked prospect comes up and is doing very poorly, that leash is going to be significantly longer.
And having a higher ranked prospect also means you could get a higher return in a trade. Like these are what is weighted in the MLB community as we know of. GMs might have their other form of weighting prospects, but that's how we view them. So without further ado, let us show you guys the updated rankings right here. And we'll bring up some notable names as we go through this list. Number 1 prospect, your number 1 Blue Jays prospect is now Orelvis Martinez. Even though with the PEDs and getting suspended, MLB still thinks, hey, this guy's a guy. He has got lots of power. He's got lots of potential. And I do agree. I think Orelvis Martinez, if he didn't have the PED suspension, he would have been in the Blue Jays lineup every day, hopefully doing well. And we would hopefully be getting to see what we could see potentially from the future for Orelvis Martinez.
Yeah, I don't think we talk enough about just how much of a fucking dagger that was.
Oh, it was, bro.
It was. We've been screaming at the top of our lungs at that point for what felt like a whole year, honestly. We need to see our prospects. We need to see Orelvis Martinez. Bring the guy up. Finally comes up, plays a game, and then boom, you're gone. 80 games. Effectively, this entire year is a wash for you. None of it matters anymore. Just a horrible, horrible update when we got that. But he is still ranked number 1. Now, the big thing of note here is our number 1 prospect in MLB, Orelvis Martinez, obviously doing the PED thing right now, which sucks, but he's not even considered in the top 100 of all MLB. When you go over here, you sort it by Toronto Blue Jays, it says coming soon. And what it really should say is coming soon, hopefully, because God only knows when we're going to get some guys in the top 100. You got to think it's going to happen eventually, or at least that is the hope. And when we go through and we look at our division, we don't need to look through all of them now, but Orioles got multiple guys in there. They got multiple guys in the top 15. Yankees got a guy. The Boston Red Sox have like 5 or 6. The Rays have a few. We are the only team in our division that does not have a single prospect that is considered at that high of a level. And that's a bit of a fall off because previously you had Ricky Tiedemann and you had Elvis Martinez both in there.
Yeah, and I think you even had one more, if I'm not mistaken, in the top 100. But we have no guys that not only are they falling down on our own list, but they're falling down on the overall MLB list, which is really shitty to say. I mean, a lot of people are going to look at that, and yeah, we had a great trade deadline, but a lot of people are going to look at that and go, well, you didn't really get anybody of worth, like a guy of significant value. So let's take a look. I mean, where'd Ricky Tiedemann go, guys? And we were looking right here. He dropped down from 1 to 4.
Which is understandable.
Understandable. He's got Tommy John. He's not going to be in the show, and they rightfully put it here till 2026. And even then, he's still going to have to get built back up. I could probably see in 2026 him starting again in AAA, working himself back up. He's going to not start with the team right away. It's going to be a long, long road for Ricky T.
And obviously, too, like when you get an injury of that magnitude at such a young and pivotal age and stuff, right? It does, it makes you start to wonder, like, how much is this going to impact the development, right? We're talking about a very valuable year of your life where it's, we're playing video games on the couch type thing, just fully rehabbing, just like trying to get right, So that's where I think that there's still question marks right there. We're not entirely sure, but he's dropped down a little bit. Please carry on.
Yeah, I'll go through all the guys who are dropping down first because it's a little bad news, good news thing. There's guys that are going up there. So Ricky Tiedemann goes down. Arjun goes down just a little bit.
Which is wild because he's fucking destroying the baseball, right?
Oh, I know. Arjun Namala, I actually have his stats right here, guys. In two different teams, a rookie ball and single A. He is absolutely phenomenal. He's got 14 home runs. And the big note is a lot of it is in single A. He's not playing rookie ball as much anymore. He's just firmly in single A, and he's destroying the baseball. Yeah, 220 batting average, but the power is there. And for a guy of his stature, I mean, he is a skinny 19-year-old or 18-year-old kid, and he's got power. So imagine when he develops into his man body, how powerful that guy is going to be.
Well, what that tells me right there is he is really hitting the baseball exactly where it needs to be hit. Because you're right. I mean, a miss hit from him because he is so spindly is not going to travel as far as a miss hit from a Jorge Soler or something like that. They're not going to go over the fence. He's clearly barreling that ball up so well that it's flying and getting that launch.
And bat speed. That's what it's got. Absolutely, that bat speed's got to be up there. And that is one of the notable things about him is how fast he can whip that barrel through the zone. So that's exciting. But he's there. I mean, his prospect ranking is going to be fluctuating all throughout the years, as we'll come to see. One other notable guy is Brandon Barriera, guys. I think he might have been 3rd or 4th on our prospect list last update.
Yeah.
He dropped down to 18. He hasn't really played at all this year. I think he's played 1 or 2 games. He got hurt. He's out for almost the entire season. He might be done for the entire year. So he's dropped significantly. Former 2022, I believe it was, first round selection.
Yeah, we were live for it. I still remember that, and we were happy about that pick. We felt like he had a lot of talent. He was in the building.
Talking about playing without Manoah.
Yeah. I mean, we were kind of hyped. We were kind of hoping that, maybe not this year, but next year he could be part of the team.
Maybe in the conversation.
Exactly,
right?
It's
starting to happen.
Clearly, that's probably unlikely at this point. They're saying that his ETA is going to be 2027, which is just a ways away, right? So you're going to have that guy chilling down there and cooking for quite a long time. Across the board, though, What are there any other big movers here?
Yeah, they're definitely. I mean, Trey Savage is definitely one of them. He started with the team pretty high already, but he got bumped up to 2. And it goes to show we were excited about Jake Bloss kind of taking over that Ricky Tiedemann role. When I got Trey Savage expected to come up in 2026, and maybe he comes up even sooner. Who knows? He's up there, and that's an exciting piece. That's our first round pick. But then again, you never know what's going to happen with these first round selections because I remember when Arjun Namala was put up in the top 3. I remember when Brandon Barriera was put up in the top 5 immediately. They're kind of doing the same thing with Trey Savage. It all depends on the development. If you can stay healthy and you can put up some good years and some good numbers in the minor leagues.
Yeah, exactly right. And you're thinking about Trey Savage. I think about Trey Savage kind of similarly to the way that I just thought about Brandon Barriera.
Literally,
we drafted him in the first round. We're all excited. We're all hype about him. At the time, Brandon Barriera, I think he was the 4th or 5th or something like that in our prospect system.
Right.
Then the kid gets injured. He falls way down, and now the ETA is a lot longer than initially expected. So the Toronto Blue Jays have got to do a lot better job at managing their starting pitchers, especially these pitching prospects, because this has just been a continuous issue where now you're looking at this team and legitimately every single guy in there, other than Bowden Francis, that's outsourced. You bought Kevin Gosling, you traded for Jose Barrios, you bought Chris Bassett, you bought Yariel Rodriguez. All of this is you're trying to spend money because you're not having anybody come up from the system. And then the one guy that you did have, he also effectively died after having a horrible season last year. The guy I'm speaking of is Alek Manoah, right? Because he is seriously injured right there. So we got to do a lot better job at managing these pitching prospects.
I can't agree more. It's funny too. Jake Bloss, we got him from the Houston Astros organization. He's coming a top prospect. He's probably the next guy up, which is not even a guy that we homegrown. So yeah, I can't agree with you anymore. One last notable guy that I want to bring up here is Charles McAdoo. Charles McAdoo actually has been cooking a bit in the minor leagues. Someone was talking about this to me when we were at, shout out to Baseball Town, by the way. If you guys were there last night, shout out to everybody who was there. Super dope. Someone was actually bringing up that Charles McAdoo has been pretty fun to watch in the minors. And yeah, you could see Toronto, I mean, he hasn't been that great with us, but overall, still very good in the minor leagues. Solid. And let's hope to see that he continues that development because, again, another second baseman, third baseman that we have coming up through the system. But that is effectively, guys, the updated prospect systems. Overall, I guess you could say the Blue Jays downgraded because we actually lost guys from the top 100. We downgraded a lot of guys that we were hopeful for. No one really, I feel like Aurelio Martinez didn't really move. Actually, in fact, he probably did got downgraded overall. So you look at everything, and it's been a pretty bad update, I would say, for the Blue Jays.
Well, it really makes you wonder, like, how awful would this farm system look had they not made all those sell-offs, a couple of weeks prior, right? Like, that would have really fallen down because at that point, we still would have had anybody in the top 100 at all, and a lot of these guys would have continued to drop down. So you look at everybody that we did bring in. Again, credit where credit is due. Ross Atkins did a good job of addressing that. This is going to continue to be something that they need to look at, though, right? You're going to need to continue to bring people in through the draft and from the trade deadline and maybe this off season. Like, if you are flirting with the idea of, trading away a Bo Bichette or whatever it is, filling out that farm system a bit more is just never a bad idea.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, man. It just sucks because, we're looking at this kind of transitioning window and we don't have really anybody to transition with. You know how many times we've said throughout this entire podcast, throughout the entire tenure with Vladdy and Bo and this whole window of guys, we kept saying, well, eventually there will come a point when we need to have guys up and coming, ready to take over the reins in case we can't sign them back. And I don't think as much as I love the guys who are with the team right now, I don't think we have those kind of caliber players like a Bo and a Vlad who are ready to step up and just take over the reins, in the next couple of years. And that's a failure, by the organization.
Well, I would also argue too, it's partially the organization that creates the player, right? And we had a whole podcast just the other day looking at Yusei Kikuchi because you trade away Yusei Kikuchi, everybody's thinking, holy crap, we fleeced the Astros. We got everything and more. And it was still an incredible trade. I'm not taking anything away from that. But the second that he goes over there and dons an Astros uniform, like, boom, this guy's a different player. He's throwing pitches that, he was throwing significantly less in Toronto, way more. Like his whole arsenal is, like, flipped on its head. They had a completely new strategy. And in 3 starts so far, he's got a 2.7 ERA. So when you look at dynasties, the Houston Astros is a great example. They have their prospects and they have their guys, but they consistently get the best out of them. And one player, this is how I'm transitioning this right now, one player that they were doing that with was Joey Loperfido, who, again, very small sample size so far. That needs to be the qualifier here. Very small sample size. Toronto has been incapable of doing so up until this point.
Right, and I do wonder, let me just read out his stats here, but I want to leave this question out there for everyone to think. I do wonder how much influence is the coaching staff getting in Joey Loperfido, or are they letting him kind of go and play, and they're not really talking to him? Because that's almost what it feels like to me when they do it with Kikuchi and they do it with other guys too. They let them go and play, and they're not really involved in making changes to their process if it's not working. So I'm going to let that kind of manifest there for everyone to kind of think about. But to your point, I mean, he hasn't been that good. He comes over to Toronto and he's got a 128 batting average, 10 games, granted. A 350 OPS, granted, 10 games. But he was on an 0 for 24 stretch right there. And I always wonder, is anybody going and saying anything? Well, this is something that actually transpired where Joey actually stood up and he went and said something to John Schneider out of nowhere. Loperfido actually went into John Schneider's office and kind of said almost apologetically that this isn't me. I'm sorry for like playing how I'm playing. Let me read you what he said. He literally went to John Schneider's office and said, hey, I know, this is paraphrasing, hey, I know you don't have a huge track record with me, but this isn't it. This isn't who I am as a player. And then apparently John Schneider tried to stop him and saying, you don't have to say this. And he said, no, I want to. The way I work through this and respond to it, we'll show you who I am and what I'm about. First of all, I want to say that's kind of some great, cojones from the young kid to go up and walk into the manager's office and go, let me tell you, this isn't who I am. I'm going to stop this right here. I'm going to actually make some sort of change to make it happen. And he did. He actually broke his oath for that night. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Nick, of Lo Perfido going to talk to John Schneider in his office and kind of making a claim for himself that this isn't who I am?
I mean, of course, right? Like, I think that this is what you have to do, especially when you're somebody of Joey Lo Perfido's caliber. You got to make your own way. You got to pave your own path. And if you're playing like shit, it's like you got to go own up to it and say, this is not going to continue. And let's face it, folks, it has been 10 games, but he has been playing very, very bad. You know, I like to see the motivation. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, in a different way, Yusei Kikuchi a couple of years ago when he was playing like garbage, kind of going to the guys and saying, fuck, I am so sorry. You know, like, if you need to send me to the minors, you can, because I understand how badly I'm doing. That's what he did a couple of years ago in his first year with Toronto. And obviously turned it around the second year, and then, I mean, this one was kind of a wash. But you love to see the motivation from him. I do wonder, why is that something that you need to go and say in the first place? Like, is John not communicating with you at all?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And, it's speculation, but
yeah, exactly, right? Like, that, we're be going down a deep rabbit hole if you start speculating on that, because we have no idea, like, what goes on in those rooms or the conversations that are had. But I would hope that John Schneider and the coaching staff and everything like that is making it known, like, dude, these games do not matter. We're here for your development, and you're consistently talking with all of these young guys that you just paid a premium to acquire, right? Traded away all your guys to bring into this organization. These are the guys of the future. We need them to pan out. You need to be active in their development moving forward.
Well, that's the thing. Is like you got to be active in their development. Again, I do want to touch on the speculation because it does make me wonder why Joey had to step up and go in and talk to the manager. Like, is no one going and talking to him and working on a game plan, seeing it? Or did Joey step up and go, I need to work on something different here, and he's taking initiative versus the staff? I don't know.
Let me be very clear. We are not a good baseball team. You know, we don't have a good.
We don't have a good staff.
We don't have a good coaching staff. We do not have good management. I don't know if that's because they're too hands off or too hands-on, as we've seen them do that in the past with certain analytics. I really have no fucking idea. All we do know is that what they are currently doing ain't it. That's what we know for certain, is that the way that you are currently running your organization and coaching these players and developing these guys, everyone other than Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who just happens to have a Hall of Fame father who is also very good at baseball, everyone other than that, it's not working right now, and you got to do a lot better. So, again, I'm not sure if it's hands-off or hands-on or whatever, but, you know, something needs to change.
You know, it's funny. I look at other teams, and I hear in the media, like, oh, this guy made a change. This guy's, you know, they're working with the coaches on this. But the only guys that I have heard in the Toronto Blue Jays team, from the position player side of things, that have actually worked on making a change was Horwitz recently. He said he went to Matt Haig to work on things, and he made a change, and he's out of his slump now. He's doing very well in the last week. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he made the change in his load, going from a 3-piece to a 2-piece and a barrel tip, and that was the difference. I haven't heard of anybody else getting approached by a coach, them going and actively trying to change. So it's a mentality throughout the coaching staff. It's a mentality throughout the team. Whatever it is, we're not doing enough, clearly.
Well, that's true as well. Like, we haven't heard it, right? And I think now you just reminded me of what was going on with Jackson Holliday. And if you guys aren't familiar, Jackson Holliday gets called up to the show. Obviously, the top prospect, so he's going to get a lot more media than a Joey Lo Perfido or anything like that. But gets called up to the show initially, just stinks it up out there. Doesn't look like he can, has how to hold a bat, let alone swing the goddamn thing. Then they send him down. Shouldn't thank you to the person that just subscribed right there. By the way, if you haven't already done so, hit the like, smash the subscribe button, folks. We appreciate every single one of you. Jackson Holliday stinks it up, gets sent down to the minor leagues. And he was saying, like, because he came out afterwards, they talked about everything that changed. Because now he's up with the team. Now he's doing really good. Now the Baltimore Orioles are continuing to roll. But, He gets a whole PowerPoint broken down. Like, the entire time that he was up with the show, there was like a fucking team of big brain analytics based, but also like, real-time coaches evaluating everything. You got like 10 Joe Siddles who were in their prime right there, sitting at a table, like developing everything. And they had a whole like PowerPoint presentation of exactly what it is that he needs to change, what he needs to work on. And when he gets to the facility, he's got multiple coaches immediately addressing those things. He comes up a couple months later, and now he's destroying the baseball again. So, that's a story that we heard because he's Jackson Holiday, because he's the #1 prospect, because he gets all the media time. I don't know if we're doing that or not with some of these other players, but we need to if we aren't currently.
You'd think that you'd hear about it more when there's nothing going on in the season. That's another thing. It's like, okay, we're literally now trying to develop and get better for next year. Why aren't we hearing about it?
Right.
It's like, anyways, but I think we've covered it all. Like, this whole staff, there needs to be a reworking. Is it going to happen? I don't know. But that's clearly a problem. And it's got to be a mentality change amongst other people. There is another guy, too, like, when I think about a guy who needs a mentality change, who needs to make an adjustment and clearly hasn't, he has been on the diamond in a while, but it's Bo Bichette. Right. He's another one of those guys. He's had success the entire time with the Toronto Blue Jays. This year, he doesn't, and he feels like he never made that change. If he did, maybe something would change, and maybe we'd hear about it, but we never did. But Bo Bichette, there has been an update with him recently about his injury. Apparently, he has resumed baseball activity, and he's hitting in the cage, he's doing some throwing, and he's feeling good. And they're talking about how, like, maybe that if they get him back soon, that'd be great, saying John Schneider. We've talked about it before, that maybe the best thing, going off that whole point of making an adjustment, the best thing might just be to go down in the minor leagues, get your Jackson Holiday-esque PowerPoint presentation ready, and present it to him. So, I mean, yeah, what are your thoughts on just that again?
I mean, I'm very happy to hear that he is working on his shit, because he's gotta. It's like, this isn't vacation time or anything like that. Like, yes, you're hurt, and you gotta focus on that #1. But we also need you to be good at baseball next year, assuredly, if there's any hope at competing at all. I'm still of the mindset where I think the best thing for this team moving forward is not to have him come up to MLB, just because, these games don't matter. I don't think that he's going to garner or get a lot out of coming up and playing in 10 games with the Toronto Blue Jays or something like that. I guess if he really looked at it like it was nothing and just worked on some of the mechanics, but you can do that down there in a minor league stint as well, right? You can do all of that. So I think it's better to keep him down there, have an absolutely zero pressure, media's away from you type thing, because that's another factor as well. When he comes in, he stinks it up. Now you got a bunch of headlines about you. That never makes you feel any good.
No.
And then, God forbid, you get hurt again, and it's like, well, what are we even doing here? I think you got to keep his value as high as it is right now. And, just in case you did want to trade him in the offseason, or alternatively, get ready and gear him up for 2025. Doesn't make any sense for me to bring him up with only a month and a bit left of the year.
No, I can't agree more. I can't agree more, guys. Also, I see a lot of people in the chat right now talking about the game.
Yes.
Yes, we will be going live, guys, at 2:20, so I guess we'll go live like 5 minutes before, like 2:15. Yep. So you guys can mark it in. We'll upload the stream right after this one's over, and we'll get ready for that. But I can't agree more, Nick.
Let's move on and talk about something pretty radical, pretty exciting, depending on what side of the coin you are on. MLB right now, seriously talking about, seriously thinking about starting a 6-inning minimum rule for starting pitching, right? This would negate all of the shit where it's, bullpen day. I think it would anyways. Like, bullpen days are effectively gone now.
They just want to ruin Tampa Bay Rays.
Tampa Bay Rays are like shaking in their boots here at the idea of this, but 6 innings minimum for the starting pitcher. Now, there were a couple caveats right here. If your starting pitcher throws 100 pitches, but he's not, at 6 innings at that point, you can still take him out, because your conversation was risking injury. That negates it, right? 100 pitches is where they have him at usually anyways. Right. So if you do that, it's like, okay, you can leave. He gives up 4 more runs. So if he gets completely blown up or anything like that, you want to make a change, you can do that. Or alternatively, he gets actually seriously injured. And in that case, of course, you would take him out.
And you'd have to put him on the IL, it looks like, to avoid manipulations. You can't just be like, oh, I'm sore.
Yeah.
You'd have to actually put him on the IL.
It's got to be a legitimate injury where it's like, okay, something is seriously wrong with you and we can't have him continue. So they're seriously talking about it. Let's talk about it right here.
Yeah.
You guys sound off in the comments. What do you think? 6 innings minimum. I'll say right now, apparently it is all to make the starting pitcher more of a quote-unquote main character.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't really determined how exactly I feel about it. My initial reaction feels like danger. I mean, the starting pitching role is already starting to get a little bit dangerous, or starting pitchers in general starting to get a little bit more dangerous because of the way that they're throwing. Now, if you go 100, if you have to go 100 pitches to get through your outing or 6 innings, a lot of pitchers are going to have to change their game. Like, I think about, guys who throw upper 100s or throw 100s, upper 90s. You can't really do that anymore. I mean, if you really want to survive the whole game, you're going to have to throw a lot less. I look at guys like Yariel Rodriguez or, spot starters here and there, or organizations who don't have a lot of starting pitching depth, aka the Toronto Blue Jays. Now you're kind of screwed. It's gonna affect the way you play games. You're gonna have to plan for this if this were to happen. You're gonna have to get guys who are literally just bad, who can just throw innings, which is gonna affect the game as well of baseball. So there's a lot of things this could happen. I mean, obviously pitchers want to go 6 innings regardless, but this is a way to kind of combat, I think, the analytics of pitching, where they're going to do matchups that go one time through the order, and they're going to put batters down. I know you're saying main character for starting pitchers. I think it's a way to create a little bit more offense too, but it will have a dramatic impact on baseball.
Well, I say main characters because that was actually something.
That's something they said,
yes,
yeah. But I think a part of it too is to create more of, get the starting pitcher role back into baseball, but create more offense in anyways.
So I'm looking right now, and in this year, it looks like the average pitches thrown, pitches per start, is 86.2.
Right.
Now, keeping in mind, that is also factoring in some of these other players that we're talking about, like Yariel Rodriguez, like somebody that's going to come in and, do a couple things or whatever. And it's 5.24 innings on average. So, from an inning standpoint, it's actually not that far off. And I do think about that like 100, because I know we were talking previously about, we're worried about injuries and everything like that. I mean, I kind of look at it like 100 is effectively the kind of soft deadline anyways. Like, most guys should be capable of throwing 100 pitches, right, to be a starter. And that's, once you get to that range, it's like, all right, time to go. We don't want to risk any more injury. I kind of like it. Like, again, I'm not sure what it would be like in practice, but I'm not a huge fan of the whole, one guy for 2 innings here and another guy for 1 inning there and the whole Tampa Bay Rays baseball. Like, I do love looking at the baseball reference pages as well of guys like, a Nolan Ryan or somebody who's just like racking up 270 innings a year, which I'm not saying this is going to make happen, but it does feel like the starting pitcher, like that role, that value is just diminishing as time goes on. And, we are getting to a place where it's so analytics based, where it's like, okay, you do 3 innings and you do 3 I could see a reality where baseball got to a point where it's like, all right, the math says 1 time through the order only for 1 guy, let's just find a way to do that. I love the idea of making the starter more of a main character. I don't know if this is the right execution for it.
Yeah.
But I think I like it in principle.
I think I'm kind of with Nancy here. This is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Like, I don't know, like, what they're trying. Like, are they trying to fix more offense in baseball? Like, that's what I'm trying to think right now. Like, the problem, because here's the thing: there's still so many main characters and starting pitchers in baseball. I look around the league. There's a ton of like elite starting pitchers in baseball that are still main characters. So I'm kind of, I just don't think it's necessary. I think there's a lot more risk to it, because I know you look at the averages, but that's also weighting in the guys who are main characters, who can go 7 innings and 6 innings consistently and can go a lot more pitches per start. Whereas, like, you have a lot of guys in the MLB that, they can't even. Like, I'm looking at Yariel Rodriguez. Those guys that can only touch 80, and like those guys are going to become obsolete, or they're going to have to change the way they pitch, which might affect their outcomes and performances or whatever. I think there's going to be a lot more negative, not to a great extent, but a lot more negatives that could happen to something that doesn't really feel like we're solving anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll see, man. I mean, I would argue though that if it makes players like that obsolete, necessarily, I don't think that that's necessarily the right term. I would argue that it might promote better pitching. Like it might promote you to become a better pitcher. Because you're going to be forced to it, right? You're going to need to pitch around the edges. You can't be gassing it up to 99 all the time, unless you are like a Max Scherzer or something who just does it year in and year. And that's the thing, right, too. Like, there are players who can throw at that high velocity and still pitch 200 innings time and time again. I know
that are Hall of Famers.
Yes, that are Hall of Famers, but, like, we like Hall of Famers. I like watching I'm sure, like, everyone likes fucking Hall of Famers.
For sure, but we're not going to create Hall of Famers doing this,
No, but I think that you are going to... you're going to promote longer pitching performances. You're going to have the starters be more of an impact on your team. And I like that element. Like, I like the idea of it's like, okay, this guy, it really is his game today. It's like you're the quarterback of the day. We are kind of living and dying by the way that you throw the baseball.
I think what also it could impact is like, you're going to have a lot of guys getting paid more. Because like, oh crap, I need a guy to go 6 innings. Like I'm giving Steven Matz like, back in the day. I'm giving him like fucking 20 mil. It's like because I don't have a guy like think about the Blue Jays. You'd be screwed. You would be royally screwed for next season. You're gonna have to get some guys in the offseason. Yeah, but it's not gonna happen next season. It's more of an idea, guys.
Again, like this is not something that's gonna come into practice immediately or anything like that. Like if something like this was to actually transpire, we're looking at a multiple year rollout. I see some people saying try it in the minors first. That is probably something that may or may not. I don't know.
That'd be tough because now I'm thinking about the young guys.
Some of the minor league pitchers,
and they can't go that long.
Again, I'm not entirely sure how they would roll this out, what they're doing with it. I think that this is an interesting idea. I like the idea of making the starting pitcher more of a main character. Again, I think we still need to workshop shit and figure out exactly the execution of how this would happen.
Yeah, I think before you do that, I think you add the robot like challenge system. That's totally off topic, but like if you're gonna add anything like I want that
I mean that's pretty standard and pretty easy as well, just to lock in and make it happen.
All right, guys, so let's know your thoughts about that in the comments. It's a pretty interesting topic. As we can go on it forever, but let's move on and let's talk about your Toronto Blue Jays on a heater right now. A sweep of the LA Angels 3-game winning streak. I saw an article, I didn't read it, but it was like Blue Jays on big winning streak, looking to continue in Chicago. I'm like, it's 3 games, guys. But that's obviously really big for the Toronto Blue Jays. And, I mean, you look at the standings. We're kind of joking around this morning. I mean, you look at the standings. We're 9 games back of a wild card. We're now at 0.4% in the odds of making playoffs, guys. So we're cooking. We're cooking right now. This is the best odds we've had since before the trade deadline. But in all, I mean, just looking at the more realistic, standpoint, I always said if we can go 500 the rest of the way, if we're not going to get the top pick, if we can go 500 the rest of the way, I mean, hey, that's pretty darn positive for next year looking at the roster that we're throwing out there.
Yeah, this isn't it shouldn't be a 500 roster when you look at these guys. It really shouldn't be at all. So, very small sample size. I think it's like 7-7, 14 games type thing.
Yeah.
Anybody can do anything in 14 games in baseball, right? So they still got about 40 more to go. We'll see if these guys can keep up this pace. It really is a one or the other thing for me, like you've brought up. Either, go 500, a bit above 500, and really instill me with confidence that there is something here, that Will Wagner is a fucking guy, and, Spencer Horwitz made that adjustment, and he finished the year off strong, and, Alejandro Kirk, who is actually starting to hit the baseball with a little bit more authority. I'm not going to gas him up too much, but he's starting to be a bit better, right? I want to see all that, and then we know it's like, all right, there's a little something here. There's a bit of a spark. But if you're not going to do that, then, lose to the max. Because as we were talking about to begin this show, that prospect pool, it's got to get filled up. And Ethan Holiday would fill that prospect pool
up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it would, guys. So we'll see. We'll see how we do the rest of the way. But we got a series coming up. And again, like y'all are saying, we mentioned this before, it starts in what? Less than 2 hours?
Less than 2 hours, yeah.
We're
going to finish off this show, and then it's like immediately, effectively jump into the live stream. So, guys, if you're watching with us right now, there's 98 of you, stay on YouTube because we will be live for that game, which is an Apple TV game in legitimately an hour and a half or so. Let's take a look at this Chicago Cubs series, everybody. Cubs, definitely a bit better than the LA Angels, but still not a quality baseball team by any stretch of the imagination. Pretty similar to your Toronto Blue Jays. Today, it's going to be Chris Bassett. Is this today?
This is
today. All right, Chris Bassett.
Oh, wait, no, this is Royal Rodriguez.
That's what I thought. Okay, so in fact, it will be Yariel Rodriguez up against Hendricks, who's having a really bad year today. Really bad year in general. 3-10 on the year, 6.60 ERA. Rodriguez doing better than that record wouldn't indicate it. He's 1-5. He's got a 3.6 ERA. So, and again, with Yariel Rodriguez, I feel like you're flipping a coin, you're rolling the dice, you're doing whatever. I have no idea what to expect out of him yet.
Yeah.
But I do know to expect Kyle Hendricks to be bad.
Yeah, and that's simply that. I think the matchup's too good. I think the Blue Jays offense is cooking a little bit too. I mean, we're average in baseball right now, which is better than where we have been before.
Sure.
And just based off that, guys, I mean, I think I know where I'm going to go here. I'm going with the W for the Toronto Blue Jays. We actually got their lineup over here. Apparently it's Players Weekend, everybody. Right. I want to take a quick moment. Let's talk about these names. These player nicknames, which some of them I've never heard before.
Yeah.
Have you ever called George Springer Jorge?
Absolutely not.
Never.
And I certainly haven't called Vladdy
LK.
What
that was on his
LK.
Dude, I've seen it on his baseball reference. Yeah, like LK. I don't know. Someone let me know.
Like the deer?
No. It's got to be something in Spanish.
It's got to be, right? Know? It's got to be. Like,
what's LK?
What does that mean, everybody? Like, it sounds kind of cool, but
LK.
You know, like again, I have no idea. Apparently, Varsho is Varsh.
Creativity right there.
So yeah, no. Again, you'll notice a theme right here because Varsh is Varsh. Spencer Horwich is just Spenny. Alejandro Kirk is obviously
Kirky. That one's the best one.
That is, that feels
one of the best
natural.
Ones.
Feels realistic. There, you got Will Wagner, who's Wags.
Weird.
Like Wags, Waggy. All right.
I'd call him Waggy.
You got Ernie Clement, who's Earn Dog, which is kind of a classic. We do like that one. Joey Loperfido down there. Joe Cooks. Also, why is it not Joey Cooks?
That's what I was going to say. Joey Cooks. I much
prefer Joey Cooks than Joe Cooks.
Yeah.
Also, right now, you're not cooking anything.
No,
That's a complete sidebar. We're batting 128 in Toronto, so maybe start chefing up a little bit more stuff there, Joe Cooks. Leo Jimenez. This one.
I don't know.
Somebody please explain this to me. Joy?
He loves the movie Inside Out.
We're just happy about this.
We're
just like really
maybe he's a nice
genuinely
guy.
Happy. So Leo Jimenez just bringing the joy to every single game. That's great. I would love it if you could bring the thump though. And then you got Yariel Rodriguez down there who is El Monaco.
And I have Monaco.
Yeah, like
Monaco.
Again, no idea if I'm pronouncing that properly at all. In fact, I would bet on the fact that I'm not. But those are all your names, everybody. We got somebody in the chat telling us that LK was what Vlad Sr. called Vlad Jr. as a kid. LK. Okay. All right. That's, at least there's some, I still want to know what it means, though. Like,
right.
You called your kid the strikeout? It's like,
I think it might be the kid or something.
Is it really?
Maybe. Someone's saying that.
He in Spanish. El means he in Spanish. Okay, so he K. Weird, guys. Somebody please comment down below and let us know exactly what that means after the fact. I would love to look back at that if you guys can define it. Let's give a quick shout out though to the sponsor of this video.
Time for a quick shout out to Betway. Betway is the best place to make all of your sports bets on all of your favorite teams. Betway is also in collaboration with iGaming Ontario. Must be 19 years older to participate. And guys, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
Shout out to Betway, everybody, for being absolutely phenomenal. The place to go if you have any interest in sports betting whatsoever. We're riding with the Toronto Blue Jays today. It's a simple 1-to-1 right here. They're giving you your money back. If they win, it feels good. The money line's there. Yes, we're in Chicago, but you know what? Cooking with gas right now. Vladdy Daddy, or LK, is getting it done. So I'm gonna keep going with it.
We're on a win streak right now, everybody, and the Cubs are on a losing streak, and we have a great pitching matchup. So for me, it's pretty obvious where we're going for, and you're getting we're the underdogs. So that's an easy smash, in my opinion, right there. Ride with the Jays. Go check out Betway, guys. Best place to bet. Moving on. Let's talk about the one that we were looking at originally. You got Chris Bassett on Saturday, same time, 2:20, up against Steele, Justin Steele. He's pretty good. Bassett has been struggling
he's been
lately.
Like really getting hit hard, eh?
Yeah, and Steele, Justin Steele's been great. We know how phenomenal he's been, but Bassett has been getting hit hard. 7.12 ERA in the last 7 games.
No, it hasn't been good.
For me, that's pretty simple. Steele can absolutely steal this W right here away from the Blue Jays and the winning streak at 4. That's where I'm going with an L on Saturday.
I agree with you, man. I mean, like, I'd like to give you a bit more of an analysis just off of, like, more than just, oh, this pitcher's good, this pitcher's bad, but, like, one of them has been very good, one of them has been very bad. And again, the Chicago Cubs, they're no walkover, especially if you're us, right? If you're a very good team, maybe they're a walkover, but they're effectively the same kind of team as we are. So I'm going to say that they win this one. We're 1-1 in this series. Final game right here in Manga up against Francis, and this is where they go on to win the series. I was going to predict the Chicago Cubs win series anyways, just because we're in Chicago and we feel like kind of the same team.
Right.
So I'll give them the edge a little bit. But this solidifies it for me.
However, you got Franny Cooks over here. He's been actually doing very well lately. Just want to throw this out there. His last 2, this wasn't a start here. His last 3 starts, he's got only 6 earned runs. So there you go, 2 earned runs per start. He went 7 innings last time out. That's pretty good. How's Amanga been doing lately? He's been very cooking. But yeah, I cannot go against Amanga. He's been just phenomenal this season. 9-2 record. Unfortunately, Francis, you're just not going to be good enough to beat Amanga and the Cubs. We lose it over there in Chicago.
No, I tend to agree with you there. Now, this could change things. This could adjust the way that we think about this. All right, I was just made aware of this. I did know it already, but thank you for bringing it up to me. No roof at Wrigley Field.
For Bassett?
Chris Bassett, no roof.
Changes nothing.
Does that change anything?
Changes nothing for me, man. Nothing. How does, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know much, but how does a sinker with thousands of RPMs get affected in the, half a second it takes for him to get to home plate by a little bit of a push of a wind? I just don't think so.
Well, here's what we're going to find out, because there is no roof, and we can expect a quality start based on what was said the last time.
And if he doesn't have one,
what
do we say? We should let the action do the talking, is what I'm saying. We'll let the action speak for themselves.
Shout out here to Absolute Dan, $5 dono. Springer's nickname is his name in Spanish. LK could mean he strikes. That's interesting. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
He, and then maybe K is just strike.
Wow, I'm so dumb. Jorge.
Right.
Oh.
Yes.
How do we not know that, guys?
That is actually really fucking
That's pretty good,
stupid
actually.
of us. But thank you so much, Absolute Dan, for the dono. Thank you so much for clarifying that. He strikes. Hopefully he will strike today. We're going to be live watching it, everybody, in legitimately an hour and 30 minutes, folks. So
let's go.
Mark it in your agenda. We will see you shortly, guys, for this game, 2:20 game, live on Apple TV. So if you can't find it on your broadcaster, come watch it with us. Or if you have it anyways, then watch it with us anyways.
Come on over, guys.
Regardless.
Come on over, guys. We'll see y'all in a little bit. And as always, go Jays, go!